Braxton.
How's everybody doing today? All right, so I work with youth, but I also grew up watching professional wrestling, so reactions are huge to me. So if you can hear me, give me a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you. So I do know a lot of you here, but there's a lot of you here that I do not know. If you do not know me, you might have heard of a group called The Future Run the Streets. Raise your hand if you've heard of that. Perfect. So The Future Run the Streets is a group that started this past fall. And it was really, my intention was to get the youth in this community active and involved and looking forward to something every day when they went home. And we started with 2 kids, my little brother and his best friend. And the first time we went running, we run around the town, the first time we went running and I saw those 2 kids show up, I was disappointed, but I did not give up. And then the next time we went running, we had 5. And then the next time we went running, we had 10. And then we had 15, and then we had 20, and we ended up with 20 for running. And the proudest moment was the day that the turkey trot came up. And every single person who had been training with us, they finished the race. Many of them came in first and second and third place for the turkey trot, and that was awesome. And then the question after the race was, what are we going to do next? And so fast forward to the wintertime, we ended up doing winter kickball, which a lot of you showed up for. We had the mayor come in, a round of applause, but we had him come. A round of applause for the mayor, thank you. We had the police officers show up. We had many people from the community coming, and it was awesome, and they were all in support of the youth. With that opportunity, it opened up a lot. It got me the job that I currently have. Josh and Jay reached out to me during the Future on the Streets and told me about an opportunity. And it also got me featured in the newspaper, to which it reminded me of the first time I was in the newspaper. And the first time I was in the newspaper was not for a great reason. If you were to have a conversation with my mom, she would tell you that when I was a child, I was not the great role model that I, kind of think I am today. She would tell you that I was a jerk growing up. And so rewind back to when I was in first grade. I had decided that I did not feel very well. And let me set the setting straight. It was a winter during this time, and that'll play an important factor later on. So I'm in first grade, I'm sitting in class, and I tell the teacher I'm not feeling very well. And she tells me that I can go to the nurse. And so I walk to the nurse, and during this time, you don't need a teacher accompanying you while you're walking the hallways. And so I go to the nurse, she gives me the checkup, and she says that I'm fine to go back to class. And that's not the answer I wanted to hear. But I go back to class, and I tell my teacher, instead of returning to my group, I tell my teacher that the nurse said my mom's going to be here in like 5 minutes, and that I'm heading home. And so the teacher helps me grab my book bag, grab my jacket, and she sends me back to the nurse's office. And I walk right past the nurse's office and walk right outside the side door. You're welcome for having a front desk person for your kids. So I walk right outside the side door, and I start heading towards Marbletown Road, which is where I grew up. And for those of you who know Newark, you know that Marbletown Road is not near Perkins School. So the future's been running the streets for a very long time. And so I head all the way to Marbletown Road until I'm stopped. I make it to the Marbletown Fire Department before a car pulls and cuts me off. And out comes a lady. I had no idea who she was. And she starts asking me a bunch of questions. What am I doing outside of school? Where am I going? What am I doing? And I tell her, it's a half day, and I'm heading home. I do this every day. And she didn't believe me. She did not believe me at all. And she's very persistent that she's going to give me a ride home. And I have seen Law & Order a couple times, especially at that age, and I know what the worst case scenario is for that. So I was like, nope, I'm almost home, I can keep going. Until she tells me that she'll let me pick the radio station if she gives me a ride home. Now, all my tutoring in Law & Order went out the window as soon as she said I could pick the radio station. I grew up with 2 older sisters, so picking a radio station was a big deal. So I hop into the car. I tell her my house is right up there. If you turn right, we'll make it back to my house. And then she hits a U-turn in the total opposite direction. And I know a lot of you are parents, and your hearts are probably racing at this point. The good thing is, she brought me back to the school. The bad thing is, the principal, the police, my parents were all waiting for me when we returned to the school. And I was not very happy to see them, nor were they very happy to see me there. And so I go into the school, and it turns out that the lady who picked me up happened to be a writer for the newspaper. And she ends up reporting the story. And how this relates to what I'm talking about. So recently I've been thinking about what would happen if that story were to be put out today. We live in a time where the people on Facebook, the people in the community, if that story were to come out today, I can only imagine what people would think about my parents. They would say that my parents didn't do a great job raising me, that there was something that had gone wrong somewhere raising me in my first grade self. They would not have very positive comments to say about me. I'm sure they would say that I was a bad kid, or probably the leader of the scooter gang at this point. And so to rewind, so we're waiting in the office, and the question on everyone's mind is, why did I do what I did? Why did I leave school? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? And the answer was very simple. I missed my parents. If you know me now, you know that I'm a mama's boy. And so the answer was really simple. I missed my mom. I missed my parents. And you see, that's the issue that we often see today, is we don't ask why. When we see that a kid steals from Walmart, or steals from a store, we don't ask why. When we walk past a kid and we see them vaping, or we see them and they smell like weed, we don't ask why. When we see a group of kids roaming the streets, we don't ask why. Why is that kid stealing from the store? Probably because his parents do not have enough money to put food on their table. Why is that kid vaping? Why does that kid smell like weed? Probably because they have not learned any other coping mechanisms throughout their life. Why is there a group of kids roaming the streets? Why are they not doing anything productive with their time? Probably because there's not enough to do in this town. But the question from why turns into what. What can we do? What can we do with that group of kids who are roaming the streets? We make them run the streets. What can we do with the kids who do not have great coping mechanisms? We can show them great coping mechanisms. The kid who is stealing and doesn't have enough money to buy food for himself or his family, we take them to the study workshop and we help them get a job to work for money and teach them productive skills that are going to help them with their life. I am in a room full of community champions right now, full of people who not only ask why, I am in a room full of people who do the what. What needs to be done? Because it takes more than a person to help the youth in this community. It takes a community to help the youth in this community, because the youth in this community are the future. And as I've been saying since the fall, the future run the streets. Thank you, guys.